So let's talk about a puzzle. It's a puzzle that every single global brand, big or small, has to solve. Why do people around the world buy the things they buy? Now, getting this right isn't just a nice to have, it is absolutely the key to survival in today's international markets.
You've seen this happen, right? A product is a massive hit in one country, an absolute game changer, and then it launches somewhere else and crickets. It completely flops. So why does that happen? Well, the answer goes way deeper than just language or local taste. It's about perception, as we can see in a tale of two very different brands.
Okay, look at these two stories. On one hand, you have Colombian coffee growers. They brilliantly created this character, Juan Valdez, to build a premium, authentic image in America. You know what? It worked like a charm. But on the other hand, you have the tech giant Acer, who at one point literally hid their Taiwanese roots because they were afraid the Made in Taiwan label screamed low quality. This really shows you just how powerful and critical national perception can be.
So here's how we're going to piece this whole thing together. First, we'll look at the big picture, puzzle. Then, we'll dive right inside the consumer's mind, zoom out to the world around them, connect culture to branding, and finally, see how new ideas actually take hold and spread.
Okay, first up, let's frame the puzzle itself. To succeed globally, you have to go beyond just what people are buying and really get to the heart of why they're buying it.
So let's start by going deep inside the consumer's mind and figuring out what's really driving their decisions on a psychological level.
You know, when you boil it all down, there are really 5 core things going on inside our heads that shape our choices: our motivation, what we've learned, our personality, how we perceive things, and our underlying attitudes. Let's break these down.
Everything, and I mean everything, kicks off with motivation. You have to ask, is your customer driven by rational things, like price and how long a product will last? Or is it more about those irrational desires, things like prestige, status, and just pure pleasure? Getting that right changes your entire strategy. Now, this next one is a huge one for international brands. It's a personality trait called consumer ethnocentricity. Basically, it's the belief that buying domestic products is the right, patriotic thing to do, and that avoiding foreign goods is a must. You can imagine what a powerful and often invisible barrier that can be.
And this isn't just some vague, fuzzy concept, you know? It's something researchers can actually measure using a tool called the CET scale. They use statements just like these to figure out how ethnocentric a market is. Now, just imagine trying to sell a foreign car in a country that scores off the charts on this scale. It's a tough, tough sell.
Next up is perception, which is really the cultural lens we all use to see the world. And it can be wild how different those lenses are. For example, when cola first hit the market in China, it was widely perceived as a kind of medicine. This brings us to a really powerful mental shortcut our brains use all the time.
It's called the country of origin effect. It's like this instant association our brain makes. You see made in Germany, and you probably think great engineering. That's a positive halo. But for a long time, a label like Made in Mexico faced negative stereotypes, which meant those brands had to work twice as hard just to prove their quality.
Okay, so we've been deep inside the individual's mind. Now let's zoom out and look at how the world around them, all those social forces, shapes the choices they make.
See, we don't make these decisions in a vacuum. We're constantly being influenced by outside forces, our social class, the groups we want to belong to, our family, and of course the people we look up to as opinion leaders.
And the influence of family? Wow. This is a perfect example of how wildly different things can be across cultures. In a lot of Western cultures, it's all about the individual. Their preference is king. But in many Asian cultures, the extended family basically acts like a buying committee. Marketing to one person versus marketing to an entire family? Well, those are two completely different ballgames.
A really smart strategy is to target those opinion leaders. This is basically the original influencer marketing, right? BMW did this brilliantly by offering discounts to diplomats. Why? Because they knew that when powerful, respected people drive their cars, it sends a powerful message and shapes what everyone else wants to buy.
Okay, so we've got the internal psychological stuff and the external social forces. Now for the big question. How in the world do you put it all together to build a brand strategy that actually wins?
One of the most critical cultural ideas you have to understand is called power distance. In simple terms, it's a measure of how much a society accepts and expects inequality. In countries with high power distance, social status and hierarchy are a really big deal, and that has massive implications for branding.
This is really how you connect all the dots. Think of it like a formula for success.
You start by analyzing the national culture, things like power distance, and you combine that with the local socioeconomic realities. Those factors then point you directly toward the right brand image, which is what ultimately drives your performance.
And here's what that looks like in a model. Just follow the path here. A country's culture and its economic conditions will tell you which brand strategy to use. For example, in a wealthy country with high power distance, a brand that's all about prestige and social status is probably going to do really well. But in a more egalitarian culture, a brand focused on practical, functional benefits is often the much safer bet. It's all about matching your brand story to the local reality. All right, for our last piece of the puzzle, let's look at how a new product or a new idea actually catches on and spreads through a culture. This is the process of innovation diffusion.
It's not a random process. It actually follows a pretty predictable path. First, you have the innovators, the adventurous ones who try something new. They influence the opinion leaders. But the real tipping point, the moment you know you have a hit, is when the imitators, that's the vast majority of the market, start to jump on board. That's when an idea truly goes mainstream.
You know, it's so tempting to just throw up your hands and say, oh, it's a cultural difference, and just leave it at that. But this quote is a fantastic warning. It reminds us that culture alone isn't the whole story. Real understanding comes from digging into all the specific psychological and social drivers we've been talking about.
So, what's the bottom line here? It's this. Success in global markets is not about relying on lazy stereotypes. It's about smart strategy. A strategy that is built on a deep, genuine understanding of the unique psychological and social dynamics of each and every market you enter. And that leaves us with one final thing to chew on. As our world gets more and more connected, as globalization marches on, do you think these deep-seated differences between us as consumers are going to shrink and fade away, or could they actually become even more pronounced? It's something to think about. Thanks so much for joining us.